like 3, 2, 1, and we're on.
That's
Kenzo
me.
Richards, my man. Okay.
Yeah, I'm I'm in conversation with the Falcon.
Yeah.
It's quite an honor.
Yeah, man. It's been a while actually. When was the last time we saw each other?
Yeah. When I was walking up the stairs, I was thinking about when was the
Yeah.
last time we've met. But because of the internet, we're still in touch
Of course. Yeah.
with
Always.
this or WhatsApp or Facebook, and we're always in touch. But I mean, live, what was the last time?
I
Was it
think
in Belgium?
now. Oh, maybe it was Belgium actually. Yeah, with my infamous Emil Sitoci match with you.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
think that was
Or
the
maybe
last
was
time.
that or Spain? Were you in Spain also? No.
Spain or Malta? Also Malta was no. It fuck. I get it all mixed up. So,
Yeah.
anyways, first I need to tell you like there's no better guest I want for my number one of my podcast, and I'm honored for you to be here. So we launched this thing finally, and yeah, for those of you who don't know, here's a little story how I met this guy. So basically, it was I think I will get the date correctly. It was January 18th, 2014 in Turin, Italy. I was
Yes.
getting ready to wrestle my fifth match ever. So I walk in this venue, big school type of gymnasium venue, and I see this guy in the stands, all by himself for a few moments. And actually, it was the first time I had other wrestler that was not Italian wrestler to be on the same card with me, so I was shaking my pants. And yeah, afterwards, just hit it off, and here we are now. So yeah. Do you
Yeah.
remember that Italian? Oh, you were wrestling Fabio Ferrari, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course, I knew that because Fabio was smelling like farts the whole day. He was giving gas the whole day in the
He was
locker room.
sick or something.
Oh my God. But of course, of course, I know that day, and um, I know you were walking up to me and said, well, I was thinking you guys were ribbing me, like, are you serious? Because you were like, yeah, yeah, I know you. And I was like, you've never seen me, buddy. But I think I think you've seen some crappy footage of me
Of course,
on
yeah.
YouTube or something like that. And you were like, you were very friendly, and I was like, nah, this guy is too friendly. And then I asked, where, yeah,
This guy is too friendly.
where are you from? And you said Croatia, and I was like, okay. And then you told me the story about getting trained in Italy because there was no wrestling in Croatia, and you were so dedicated. And I was like, wow, man, this guy is the fucking real deal. At that moment, I was thinking, well, this guy is dedicated. And I was in my head at the same time, I was like, all these fucking cocksuckers in the Netherlands has to take an example of this guy because they're all fucking lazy. Sorry for my language.
He's
They're
a
all
good man.
lazy and complaining. I'm not on the poster. I want to win the title. All those motherfuckers are crying about their spot on the card, but they all look like a fucking living potato. They have the body of the neighbor around the corner, right?
Yeah.
So, and you were for me the real deal. I was like, when you train somebody, he has to have that spirit. And then you asked me, I know that. Can you watch my match? It's my fifth match or something. And I was like, okay, I will watch the match. And you were before my match.
Yeah, I was
I
the
don't
opener.
know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was the opener, and that concerned me a little bit because not to brag or something, but normally in the Netherlands, I'm never afraid. There's no tension or pressure because I'm always like, hmm, I won't be the weakest link on the card, you know. And then
Yeah.
I watched that match and I saw you in the ring, and I was like, oh my fucking god, this is the opener. I was like, oh my god, I'm the main event, and they see the shit like what you were doing with the other guy. And I was like, the stakes and the bar is high now because if this is the opener, I must do everything I can because the match was very smooth and crisp, and I was like, this guy is the real deal. And when you have to travel 6 hours or something to get trained,
Yeah.
well, you after that, I always had the respect for you and how you've done it because you're one of the pioneers now in Croatia
Yeah, one of them.
for
Yeah.
wrestling. So, and you've never turned me down, or it was like I'm always excited to see you and to watch your matches, and it's also for the fans because the fans love your work,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Afterwards, it was like we talked in Italy, right? So hit it off there, and then you said to me, "Okay, make your way to Portugal. I'm doing the
Yeah,
seminar in
that,
Portugal." That was
the
amazing
advice.
experience.
That was the advice because I wanna put some energy in people who deserve it because 90% of the people I see are assholes.
Oh
I don't
yeah.
want to give them my energy, because they're not. A lot of people have a lot of talk, but they're not serious in the thing they promise. And guys like you or Wayne from Malta, those guys are for me
Yeah.
the real deal. And I was for years in contact with Red Eagle from Portugal. He's the same kind of guy. In Portugal, he's the pioneer of wrestling. Big dreams, but he delivers. So in that time, am I boring you because you're looking
No,
at
I'm just
yourself?
checking my mixing board all the time. I need to check if everything
You
is
know
alright.
how you know how I am. I'm just
Nah, man.
kidding. So I told you like come to Portugal and do the seminar. Not because I'm such a great trainer or something like that, but I told you it's good for your network to meet people from other countries because they're Italian guys, they're Portuguese guys, French guys, UK guys. They're from everywhere. So for you, it was a good way to expose yourself to other wrestlers and promoters.
Yeah.
And then the ball kept on rolling.
Yeah, I remember for that moment it was like they announced I'm gonna be wrestling you on the card, and I was like, holy shit. Okay,
Oh
so
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
That was
so we
crazy,
had our
right?
match first, and yeah, like first 2 minutes of the match, you cut me off, do whatever, you pin me. I was supposed to kick out, and I barely kick out of that motherfucker. I was like, what the fuck, man?
I,
And
I still know that you were like, you're heavy.
yeah, yeah, I'm like, what the shit? This guy is not
I had
helping
you
me.
in the
No,
pin,
yeah, yeah.
and you're like, man, you were heavy. Yeah, because it has to look great, right?
Of course,
Oh, that
yeah.
was. I know that match because that the card was pretty good because there were a lot of guys
Yeah,
who
actually, yeah.
participated on the seminar,
Hmm.
and we put on the first CTW show in Portugal, and that card was pretty okay. It was a good show for that moment, and I know that moment when the entrance, I was like flexing. I was like after the flexing, I was like, I was dizzy. I was like, oh, because it was so hot
Oh,
there.
yeah, yeah.
And then there was the girl who was texting on the telephone while we were in the ring, and she was looking at her phone the whole time. I went legit mad because she was in her phone like, we are working our ass off, and you are watching your phone and stuff like that. But
Yeah,
it was a cool lesson for you,
yeah,
the heavy guy, and a
yeah,
guy who was
definitely.
shouting at the fans and stuff like that. It was good. It was a good match.
Yeah,
And the funny thing was, the ceiling was so low, you couldn't do any high
no,
spots.
no high fly moves whatsoever. I couldn't hit my finish. We couldn't do anything. Just standing drop kicks, moonsaults, and all that shit. All my arsenal was taken away. Smart
That was
move.
smart from you,
Yeah,
yes.
my fucking phone is leaning. Yeah, because what was I thinking with it? Yeah, for you guys that want to check it out, all this shit is on YouTube. Check out me versus Sensei of Chops, Kenzo Richards, and yeah. What I wanted to talk to you about was an idea I had about pro wrestling, about the
Yeah.
structure of the sport, basically. But before that, I want to get into you like. How do you figure out all this COVID-19 and wrestling? When was the last time you wrestled?
Um, that was the retirement match of Santos,
Oh, really?
my big friend. And it was, I think, February the 1st. I think that was, yeah, that was my last match against him. And then we had a tag team match after that because it was
Wait,
one.
was it in DPW or?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay, okay. So no wrestling, and do you think you're gonna be back in the ring this year or not? Because this shit is getting crazy. Like whole new
Yeah,
like pandemic goes from the beginning now to like the second wave or whatever. Like
yeah. I don't know. I've heard some news about guys who want to put up a show, maybe. But I told the guys, maybe you want to do a show, but how many guys have the guts to do a show?
yeah.
Because a lot of guys are afraid.
Hmm.
A lot of guys don't want to have a headlock at the moment. Yeah, it is. Everybody's afraid, man.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was like my hometown of Zadar actually had like this tennis tournament with Djokovic or all these.
Oh yeah. And he's sick now, right?
Uh, all these motherfuckers are sick. Like
Yeah.
they all tested positive for COVID, and guess what? They didn't want to take the test. Like first 3 times, they want to be tested. Just like before the finals or whatever, they test them again and they fail the test. It was so
I've, I've,
crazy. Like
I've read the story a couple of days ago. They were in Zadar, right? They had
yeah,
a tournament
exactly.
going on, 5 tournaments or something. Yeah.
Fucking bananas. So these guys did like this partying tour in Serbia and Belgrade, and then they came to Zadar, and probably they picked up the COVID over there, doing all this fucking stupid shit. But listen, like professional athlete is supposed to be tested for PEDs, steroids, right?
Yeah.
They don't even test those guys for COVID-19. That's so fucking crazy. It doesn't make any sense. Money. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all about money.
It's all about money.
Yeah. Fucking crazy, man.
Yeah. Sometimes I think, like today, I was like, will life ever be the same again? Or is it always like the anxiety? Or will that disappear? I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like cinema is not coming back or what? What?
Yeah, they can go to cinema this Wednesday, July 1st,
Oh, really?
in the Netherlands.
Cool.
And the thing is, because I'm also a judo teacher, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So the judo dojo was closed for 3 months. It's contact sports.
Hmm.
But now children till 12 years old can touch each other outside. But they have to stay away from me for 1.5 meter.
Yeah.
That's the rule here, the 1.5 meter rule.
Jesus.
This Wednesday, everybody till 18 years old can do contact sports inside in the building, but in the showers, in the locker rooms, and at the bar, you have to keep your distance from 1.5 meter. I don't know who makes those rules.
Yeah,
because
that's
maybe
yeah.
the COVID is afraid for the bar or the locker room. They don't.
Yeah, yeah. COVID doesn't go to bars.
The COVID is afraid for the dojo, but in the locker room and at the bar, he attacks.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Doesn't make any sense. Yeah, let's get into your judo while we are at
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
so
a long time ago.
yeah, so how did you actually start with judo? What is your like credentials, accomplishment in that sport, and how did you transition to pro wrestling? When did that happen?
Well, when I was 6, I was such a little asshole when I was younger, and my dad did judo, my brother did judo, and I was so active, hyperactive, and I just wanted to fight all day, so they put me on the school. I did that when I was 6, 3 times a week at least. My dad bought the judo mats for in the barn. We had a big barn next to our house. I was judoing every day with with the kids from my school after school, and judo. Did all the tournaments. I won everything when I was a kid. At the juniors, was national champion. A couple times third, 1 time second, and played for the national team. Then I did the sports academy to become a teacher, and then it was like, I'll make money. With judo, you can't make money because it's just sports, right? And then I was like, the Olympics are too far away, and the chances are so little. Fuck it, I just want to do work, do the judo, and do an extra academy for physical education teacher. So I made money, and my interest for judo went down. I had one bad tournament where I was the face, and they fucked me up as heels because throwing the medal to the crowd and stuff like that.
Oh.
I made a heel turn there, and then I quit judo.
Oh shit.
Yeah, there was a system when you lose, but with judo, when you lose a match, you can still come back to the finals.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so when you have the semi-finals of the championship is for the districts championships. So when you become one of or number two, you're qualified for the nationals. So you have 7 districts. So there are 14 guys placed for the finals. And you have to be 1 or 2 for districts. So only the top-notch guys are standing at the finals. But some districts are fucking legit good fighters. And some districts in the south are like, those guys can't do anything there. They're not strong. They have nothing they don't belong in the finals. So I was working as a judo teacher and didn't train that much anymore for myself. And then I had a challenge with some friends of my dojo friends. And I told them, well, if I train for 5 weeks, just 5 weeks, I will place myself for the finals because I'm that damn good. Mm-hmm. And they were laughing. I said, no, I'm serious. I need maybe 3 weeks, but let's make it 5. I will train for 5 weeks and I will place myself. I will become number 1 or 2 in the region, in the district, and then I will place. I said, if I don't want to become second, I will become first. If I become second, you guys can shave my head. That was the promise. So in that time I wasn't doing wrestling, so I was just a fucking big mouth.
Wait, sorry to stop you. Like, how old are you at the time?
I think it was 26. I think a year before I started wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
And but I was smart. I changed my license to a different district. So I went to the district. I went to the dojo there and said, well, I want to become a member of your school. So I could do the district selection in the south. So I had to fucking drive 2.5 hours to that place because it's far away. Because in my district, this called South Holland. That's a strong district. That's strong.
Yeah.
So I was like, I go to Limburg. That's the province. We go to Limburg. That's right down. So I said, I don't need warming up. So I didn't do any warming up. So 4 matches. It was fucking easy. So I went to the finals for 1 and 2. And then the guy tricked me with something and I stepped out of the mat and then you get a punishment. So the other guy got a point and there were only 30 seconds on the clock. And I'm like, what the fuck? I was fighting him for 4 minutes, couldn't throw him, he was very handy. And I see the faces of those guys on the benches. And you're like, doing this to me because of my hair. Like fighting. So in the last 8 seconds I scored a point. So I became champion there, and I was like, I stepped out and I said, I told you guys, but I was like, I always lost my hair. But the year after I did the trick again, and that's the thing. The year after I did it again, but there were guys from the north of Holland, where all the champions train, doing the same trick. They changed the dojo.
Yeah.
So it was not easy peasy for me anymore because I went to a guy who was number 3 of the Netherlands, good guy. And I was like, I don't need warming up. No, those guys went late. My training partner went late, so I couldn't do warming up. In the system, when you lose a match, you can always fight back in the losers round. So you can fight back to to come back in the final match for the second and third place, because the second place is very important. When you become second, you go to the finals. But when you lose from a guy, so I lose from Jokic in the first round. Jokic wins. Jokic comes in the finals. You lose the finals against Bernard van Dam. Bernard's champion. You have to fight for place 2 and 3. Except when you've already won from that guy. So, if you win from me, you reach the finals, you lose the finals, and you see me coming back for 2 and 3, the match won't happen because you've already won. So it's you 2, me 3. Ridiculous. So what happens? I lose my first match. I'm winning 6 matches, and then it's the final. The guy who I've lost, he comes to his training partner in the finals. So what happens? He doesn't have to win to go to the finals, right? If he lose the final, that motherfucker put a telephone in his judogi, in his jacket. So the referee says, "Hey, Hajime, begin." He pulls out his jacket. The phone drops out. He's like, "Oh!" Referees together, disqualified because it's a foreign object. It was fucking wrestling. And those guys were laughing, hugging each other because they were trainees.
Of course, teammates.
They set it up. I went fucked. I was so fucked. I was screaming and stuff like that. I was like, motherfuckers. And then I had to do the ceremony with the medals. I put the medal and threw it away from the podium, from the stage. I was like, I'm done with the whole fucking judo stuff. I will never set a foot again on a tournament. It's done. And then a year later, I started wrestling. So I got out in a wrestling way to get in the wrestling.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you are... black belt in judo, of course.
Yeah. So my last tournament, I was the number 3 of Limburg. Yeah, it's sad.
Okay, so...
In wrestling, it's good because you don't have to be on weight every time. 73 kilos.
Yeah.
Every weekend is hard. So wrestling is way more fun. Way more fun.
Who was your trainer when you started wrestling? Who's your mentor?
Kodiak was my mentor.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you are DPW original, like from...
Yes, that's it. In that time, it was Dutch Wrestling Federation, DWF, and then they changed it to DCW, and then they changed it to DPW, because there's a lot of changing in the wrestling world. Like, he doesn't like him, and he doesn't like them, and then they have to break up, and then they start something new, and it's almost everywhere the same.
So what do you think about today's indie scene?
Yeah, what must I think of it? I mean, you have different styles, and I think the level is pretty awesome. I think that the crowds are bigger than they were. It's more professional than, let's say, 10 years ago.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
Because I was like, in my experience, I experienced like indie wrestling could be so high level and so low level at the same time in the same show. Like, so crazy.
That's right. I'm more talking about the positive side of the indie wrestling. Because there are a lot of fans who are promoters. And that's the thing I said last week. Like all the shit what's going on now, like in the budo, you have respect and the etiquettes. This is how you behave, right? When as example with judo, you have the white belt, the yellow belt, orange, green, blue, brown, black, from light to dark. Oh, I can't say that, sorry, but that's the way it is, right? You start somewhere and then you build yourself up.
Yeah.
That's in judo. That's in karate. That's in a lot of sports. Wrestling in Japan works the same. You start here. You do all this shitty shit, cleaning the ring, building up the ring, breaking down the ring for a couple of years. Then you're not talking about a gimmick. You just wear black trunks, black boots. You maybe do 1 or 2 drop kicks, and that's for 1 year long. That's the way they build you up, and everybody walk the same path, right? The thing is, in Europe, there is no school to become a wrestling trainer. There is no university for or academy.
Yeah.
I love wrestling. I'm the trainer, and that's the thing that bothers me. Like when I became judo teacher, I had to go to school for that. When physical education teacher, I had to go to school for that.
Of course.
But I like wrestling. I'm the teacher because I wrestle already for 2 years. That's stupid. It's unsafe. It's already also impossible. How can you teach me something when you're training for yourself for 2 years?
Yeah.
At first, the safety. Man, you have to know what training is because life depends on your choices.
Yeah.
So that was the thing I was talking about. Like, there has to be, and that's the thing. The people don't think wrestling is sports, so they don't take it serious. But there have to be serious trainers.
Yeah, what do you think about this idea? Because this was something I was talking about with David Renegade from HCW, Icarus, all these guys. I think, I strongly believe pro wrestling needs to have belt system, just like judo, just like BJJ. And like, if you are my mentor, let's say you are whatever, like brown belt or whatever, black belt, you are the one who decides what belt level am I. I think this is something that we need as a sport to put credibility into it. Like, it's not for the fans, it's not a gimmick. This is like a real part of the job. Like, no gimmick, like kayfabe out, like just for our performers. So you know, like if I'm wrestling Bernard Van Dam, he knows I'm a yellow belt or whatever. So, and people say like, yeah, but everyone can say blah blah blah. Which belt are you? Everyone can give you a belt, but this will be in the beginning. But I think it will filter itself out, just like in BJJ or judo. You know who the fakers are. Like, if you are like black belt under some faker dude, you'll say, fuck that guy, fuck that guy. In our community, those guys are nothing. And I think we need something like that in pro wrestling. And that's something that I will implement in my pro wrestling academy when we start in Croatia.
There has to be some kind of system. But then we have the first problem. Who decides who's the trainer? Who decides the standards? That's difficult.
Yeah, I mean, let's say like everyone has a coach. Everyone has his mentor. You're my mentor, Kodiak is your mentor, so this is the lineage actually. I'm Kodiak's lineage in that way. Kodiak was trained by, who was he trained by? Do you know?
I think he was trained by UK Hammerlock for 3 weeks, and he went to Atlanta with Santos for 2 months, I think, at WWA 4, the former Power.
Oh wow, yeah.
But I know what you're saying, and
so I would set it up like
a big fan of the idea, and it's how Jigoro Kano did it from the judo back in the years. He had his pioneers. He sent some to France, some to England, some to Italy, some Japanese guys who teach the guys what judo was. And that system could work, but there are a lot of guys who are stubborn and like, no, I do it my way and my promotion is something else, because there are a lot of egos working also. And
yeah, definitely. But this is like
ideal world, but
because this is what bothers me about pro wrestling so much. I can't even explain to you. Like, this is the only sport where company, like top company, is bigger than the sport itself. Would you not say so? Like WWE is way bigger than pro wrestling. it can be. And whole pro wrestling sport as a general is like we are just listening about what WWE does, pros and cons or do's and don'ts. Like we are dancing on their tune. Like this doesn't make any sense to me. Like pro wrestling should be bigger than WWE. But
The wrestling is it's about a part of the money.
yeah,
It just for Vince, I think it's just a small part of the big money.
of course. And this is the craziest part of it. Like the most important guy in the whole sport is not a fan of the sport. He's a bodybuilding fan. like,
Yeah,
like
it is.
doesn't make any sense to me. But I would say like if we set up like you get the black belt if you are wrestling for the top companies like WWE, like what is AEW, like New Japan. We all know what the top companies are. If you didn't wrestle there, you simply can't be a black belt in the sport because you need to have the experience of the high level or top
Exactly.
level. So
Exactly.
if you're like if your mentor is brown belt, he can give you a black belt. You know what I mean? He can give you only the black belt because he is a brown belt or whatever.
Yeah, that's the way it works also in the book.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this is something we desperately need. And it's like because you can't even know every performer. I was wrestling with oh man, what was his name? He was Scotty Williams. I don't know, whatever. Some Scottish dude from NXT UK. We wrestled together in GWF, and he was booked to wrestle 2 times that night, like a tournament or whatever. And I was supposed to lose to him in the first round. He never heard of me, of course, and he wanted to get out of that match as soon as possible. Like we were booked for like 12 minutes.
Not important the first match.
Yeah, he's like, fuck off, I'll just wrestle you for 4 minutes. I mean, you're the star, that's okay. But I also traveled over there to get paid to wrestle there, to show myself. And he only wanted to give me 4 minutes because he never heard of me. After the match, he was like, oh shit, you're so good, I wish we did something more. But yeah, if he knew like I was like, let's say, blue belt under Kenzo Richards, he'll be, maybe this guy is actually good. I feel a bit safer in this situation. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I like the idea, like you have the basics, like you can bump and you can do the drills, and then you start with yellow, and then if you understand the psychology of a match, then you can go to another color of belt. I like the way of thinking.
And I mean, I don't give a damn if anyone jumps on this bandwagon or whatever. I will do this when I start in Croatia. Like, and when they want to book my guys in HCW or whatever, I can send my insurance of the guy. Here's your yellow belt. Don't expect anything else from him. He's a yellow belt. If they say like, if I say he's a purple belt, then if you respect me, then you think that guy is good. But if that guy sucks, then you automatically think, okay, you as a coach suck, and rightfully so. But I really think we should be doing something like this, and we should be accountable for all the mistakes or all the guys that are not working hard enough that are under your umbrella.
It will be a big filter.
Oh, definitely. Like, yeah. And I hope actually COVID-19 does this filter, because when all this shit comes back to action, I believe promoters will want to just the good guys on their cards. And all these guys that are just like paying their own trips, wrestling for nothing, I think those guys will like, fuck off.
Yeah.
Fuck those guys. Fuck them.
No, this was my last show, right?
Yeah. I mean, I want to also ask you, like, how did you like HCW? A lot of fans are gonna be from HCW on this channel, so I need to ask you about HCW, about Hungary.
The hungry guy. Oh man, that I was surprised that the crowd was so big.
Yeah, I know, man. It's crazy.
Because I've heard the first stories in the beginning. It was like smaller venues and stuff like that. but they understand wrestling.
Oh
The
yeah.
guys are pretty good also, so pretty good. The guys can wrestle.
Hmm.
Yeah, they have guys good looking, and the girls and the whole entourage, and it looks good. You were not on that show, right? When I was there,
No, I wasn't. No.
I was talking good about you, and after that they booked you
Yeah, that's
for
true.
sure. Yeah,
That's true.
you can ask the Arrow, Dover.
Icarus and over. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, over.
I told him try this guy, and he was also man enough to say, Kenzo, you're right. This guy is awesome. Yeah.
Thank you. Big shout
Yeah,
out to
yeah, no,
Dover.
but Hungary is a great country, man.
Oh yeah.
Completely different mentality
Yeah.
than in the west of Europe,
Yeah.
and I like that style. It's like a lot of, not just in wrestling, but a lot of people in the west are acting like prima donnas. They know everything, and they can come away with everything they say, and they. You know, when you say something wrong over there, they will fucking punch you in the face.
Yeah, I mean, Hungarians are like Hans, all the Genghis Khan and all these guys that all
Yeah,
came over there, so it's just,
yeah,
it's their
but that's the
DNA.
way it works. Yeah.
Craziness.
If you do it here, you go to fucking jail. Here you have to talk your way out. Like, no, that's you have to talk your problems.
Yeah,
And
I
that's
just,
why there's a lot of fucking criminals here, because they're like, oh, when I get arrested, they have a talk with me and I can go.
oh shit. Yeah.
You know?
I just remembered, this is the last time actually we talked to each other. You were getting ready. You were in Hungary actually. I was back in Croatia. You were getting ready to fight 3-on-3 MMA fight.
Yeah, that was fucking awesome, man.
With
I
Renata.
love that.
Yeah.
That was great. And you know why I loved it? You know a little bit how I am, right? I'm making people feel uncomfortable. That's one of my best moves.
Yeah.
And the other two guys, oh man, you had the big guy from the Netherlands, Ima, and Marius Olani,
Yeah,
German
beast.
guy. Yeah, he's a terrific guy,
Yeah.
great guy. The thing is, they felt a little bit tricked because the guy they were told by David, and David felt terrible, and that's the best thing because I love that part that David felt terrible. No, it will be staged and stuff like that, and I was like, I'm not fucking stupid, right? So I was like, it was a pretty good paycheck. I
Yeah.
was like, let's do it. Because I'm not the guy, I can defend myself. You will not knock the shit out of me. You will not knock the light out of me because I can protect myself because I know what a fight is, right?
Yeah.
It's not like I've never been in a real fight. So, yeah, guys, we were 3 against 3. And when there's one down, it's
Wait, just for the record. So for the record, you were fighting against Renato Mackay and one of his two of his friends, like all goons.
Smallest.
Oh shit.
And the thing was, because it was so cool, because the first day, I don't know if I can say this, but I think I can say it. I don't know. If you don't like it, just switch it.
Yeah, we'll cut it out.
No, with all respect, because we were in their yard, right? Because the MMA is their yard.
Yeah.
So we have to shut up and respect their yard, right?
Mhm.
So don't complain when they fucking hit you on the face, like, you hit me on the. That's their yard.
Yeah.
If those guys are in our ring, we hope they respect our ring also.
Of course.
So no shitty talk about those guys. First night, we're in the hotel, and they wanted to show us our competition. So the other team, they had to see us, right? So there was one guy, a little guy, who was a trainer, stalking him very, very much. And David was like, I don't like this. But the guy was talking. And then was one guy who didn't want to go in the room. He was like, I don't want to talk. And he didn't want to make the match, right? It's fake fighters. Was the biggest guy. So Marius had to make a couple with Renato, me with the big guy, and Ima with the biggest guy. And the biggest guy didn't want to enter the room. He was making problems. So we're like, okay, yeah. So we were trying to make a match, but the other guy, the trainer, was not into a fixed match.
Okay, yeah.
The other guys were like,
what the fuck?
I was like, I was like, oh, this will be so funny. So later at the weigh-in, we had to go to the gym. I had to stand on the scale, and it was very professional, cameras and stuff like that. And then Renato, because it was totally kayfabe, we didn't make contact with the guys, and they switched it. So Renato was my opponent. And I was like, whew. I was happy because he knows how to work. I was thinking that.
Yeah.
Okay. So, so we go to the hotel. The guys are a little bit quiet because they were fucking nervous. And I'm telling guys, oh guys, they're going to punch you in the face. It's no show, guys. Protect yourself. They will try to kill us. And they were like, fucking, what the fuck is going on here? So the next morning we're in the car. It was totally silence in the car. The guys were fucking like a car filled with horses and cows.
What the fuck?
To the slaughter.
Yeah.
Right?
yeah.
I was like, oh man, this is the best day of my life. I was talking in the car with David, and I was like totally happy. And Ima was like fucking nervous, and Marius was saying nothing. I said, okay guys, maybe this is the last car ride of your life. You don't know what happens. So for the last time we were fitting gloves and the
mouthpieces, yeah,
mouthpiece and stuff like that. And we went to the venue, and the last time they spoke, it was like the guy said to Marius, it was this, then you come back, this.
Going like through the match.
This. You duck one, then you come back. That was it. We're standing in that cage. I looked at Marius, I said, protect yourself. They're going to kill you. I see it. Dig. He wants to duck. He gives him a fucking uppercut. So Marius was doing the script.
Yeah. And the guy completely shot.
I see, because I'm such a fucking jackass, I see everything happening. The thing with the big guys was, yeah, you guys struggle a little bit wrestling, pushing. I see the big guy, boom, punch in the face, going down. But I'm laughing in my head because it's so funny, because I knew this was going to happen, but I was like, I want to stay alive here. So I'm standing in front of Renato, and Renato is like not in the wrestling.
So, sorry, just stop. So for those of you who don't know, Renato is also a pro wrestler in HCW, actually a champ. So that guy also does MMA. First done MMA, then pro wrestling. So Kenzo, you were thinking that you are safe because this guy knows how to work pro wrestling style.
He was the less dangerous of the three.
Yeah.
Because I already met him before.
Yeah. Right? Had experience in wrestling. Yeah.
So he's standing there with the face off, and I'm like, oh yeah, we said I will come to you. I was like, I will go back. So he's staying there like he's hauled by a rubber band or something. Nah, nah, nah. Ding, ding, ding. I'm like, no, I will go back. So I could see some things happen. So I grab him at the cage, just hold him like,
Yeah.
you're not going to punish my fucking face. So I'm holding him like this, and I can see this guy.
Getting fucked up
Yeah,
by fucking Hungarians.
we come to the ground together, and he would finish me with an arm lock.
Oh shit.
But by accident, I hooked his leg. Maybe he slipped away, but it was like a cord reaction. I gave him a little hook, and he fell on the ass. And I'm like, oh shit, no. I'm like, no. So we're on the ground. He's on top of me,
Yeah.
and he stops clubbing me.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Shit.
no. Just protect myself. And I see Ima
Out.
out. So it's 3-2, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm on the ground. Marius is on the ground. I hope that guy will go away, right? And he goes the other way. He kicks Marius on the head, and the rule was like, when somebody's down, don't kick him.
Yeah.
Just kicked him. And I
What
said
the
to Marius, just make an udishiki jijikatame. That's an arm lock.
Yeah.
Because he knows judo also.
Yeah.
I said, make a jijikatame. So I was like, hello. I was laying there. Grab the arm.
Grab the arm. Yeah.
Grab the arm. I was doing 2 times. Grab the arm. Grab the arm. And then finally took like, so I tapped out. And then those 3-on-1. And then the referee was like, no, it's enough. But it was a totally good happening. Those guys were good fighters, man.
Yeah. Those guys were beasts.
I heard from David it was a pilot because they wanted to do the same in the December after that for Serbian hooligans against Hungarian hooligans.
Oh shit!
5 against 5 or something.
Fuck me.
So this was the experiment.
Yeah. Jesus, I heard. Yeah.
You're so not focused because they're. And come on, those guys are professional fighters.
Of course.
We were 3 fucking jobbers in that ring.
Yeah, I think.
Like
Yeah, David told me.
Playing basketball, Michael Jordan against 3 blind guys, right? It's funny to see, man.
Yeah, I believe David told me.
Everybody's walking to the locker room with the ball.
Because I think they told me it was supposed to be like not like a fixed match, but they wanted to prolong it to a second round because they wanted to be like, because it's like main event, right? So they wanted to get their tickets worth like to the fans. They wanted to have like a fixed first round so they don't fuck you up, and in second round they go, okay, now fuck those guys up. But no,
it doesn't work because when you have 3-on-3,
yeah,
one will go out. And
yeah, of course.
It's over. It lasts maybe 40 seconds. Yeah, you have one guy less.
Yeah, of course.
Because Emo was still trying to grab a little bit with the guy, but he got punched in the face.
Fuck me.
I was laughing afterwards.
Jesus.
These guys were fucking bruised in the face.
Did Marius did any MMA before? I think he did some training.
Yeah, but he was expecting dick.
Yeah.
It was dick, puff. Yeah, that was bad for Marius.
Shit. Oh man, kayfabe 101.
Yeah, but you know this will happen. You know there's a big chance that will happen, and you have to respect it.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's their yard. Don't
course,
fucking complain. The other guys didn't complain either, but David felt a little bit guilty, like, oh, sorry guys, I didn't know this would happen. I was like, it's so cool. But it's cool, man. It's something different. I advise you to do it one time in your life. It's cool.
I would love to try, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, man.
Get my ass kicked for real.
Well, I'm better in wrestling.
Yeah. Did you... Jesus. Yeah, but I would never do like 3-on-3. I feel like I would get raped or something.
Yeah, there's a big chance they will.
Yeah, you better go out first. Don't be the last guy to go.
I was like, can I? That was what I suggested. I was, shall I go out first because I'm the smallest guy? Something like that. I don't need the spotlight, guys. Maybe it's better for you guys to take the spotlight. I'm the weakest link. Like, no.
Such a gentleman. Jesus.
Oh, you're laying there. It's like, I hope the big guy goes that way and not this way.
He doesn't pick you next. Jesus.
Great, man.
Did you watch WrestleMania 32?
No, I don't want.
Was it 32?
No. No time for it.
Yeah, I wanted to watch it because it was like first show under COVID-19 rules. It was without a crowd or whatever.
Oh yeah.
It was so strange they did it. Like, what do you think about that side of it? Like, pro wrestling is supposed to be a theater. Without a crowd, it doesn't actually make sense because we need to work the crowd or do whatever. But if you put it in without a crowd, it's basically a movie, and that's what they did with the Undertaker and AJ Styles. Like, and the one other interesting thing was like this was the first WrestleMania I was watching without any botches. So they probably just cut out every botch, every mistake of the show.
Of course.
Yeah, no, not for me. It's just not for me. I didn't enjoy it. It wasn't live. It's just like, okay, special effects.
Tape, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's bad. The reason why I wanted to ask you about is because we were talking about kayfabe, and then you had this. I don't know if you watched it, the John Cena, Bray Wyatt, the Firefly Funhouse match or whatever. Did you see that? Maybe.
No.
So much mixed feelings. For example, Icarus loved it. I hated it. It was like the dumbest thing I ever saw in my life. It was like that's not even wrestling. Because there's a saying in pro wrestling that kayfabe is dead. Like all the smart fans are talking about, oh, kayfabe is dead. How the fuck can kayfabe be dead? Then pro wrestling is dead. I mean,
yeah.
In theater, in movies, kayfabe is not dead. I mean,
no.
But we are like,
it's just the storyline. That's the way. That's the reason you want to watch wrestling.
Exactly.
Right?
This shit doesn't make any sense to me. Like kayfabe is dead.
Even the smart marks who buy tickets.
Of course. Always.
They eat it up. Yeah, right. Because when you have a good match with a good story, they're totally into it. So
yeah.
You got them again.
My God.
Thinking about that match we had in Bruges.
Yeah.
I watched it back 2 weeks ago or something, and that was pretty good.
Yep, it was.
And I think the reason for that, because it was a three-way, and I was laying for 80% of the time outside of the ring.
No, I mean Sitochi was always building the match. Like he was the only heel, so he was always being inside. And I think the whole like story and chemistry with three of us worked. But for that match, I was like shaking my pants like never before. Like it's always scary to wrestle you because of the chops and hard and hard pins to kick out of and the stuff like that. And Sitochi is like he was like a top guy. Like he was like one of those such a pro guys of Europe. Like don't mess up with this guy because he's not gonna he's gonna give you shit about it. And that's exactly what I did in the match.
What did you do?
He was so mad at me. I was like, oh shit, I'm sorry, bro. My bad, but yeah, fuck it.
Yeah, but he's good.
Definitely. I love the guy.
But this guy.
Yeah, he can make a bad match. He's like such polished in the moves he does, and he doesn't do anything crazy in the matches. Just like sticking to the basics with the flavors of cool moves. Always.
Everything in his match has a reason. And
Yep.
Nothing too much. And his creative mind is also so good. When we have matches, 70% is from his side, because especially the finish, and when it's very exciting, it's most of the time from out of his brain. So,
Yeah.
yeah, terrific guy. Yeah.
Yeah. So he would probably be one of your top three opponents you had in your career, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. I can work that guy every week. Well, I always say about him is like, a lot of guys can't do that, but he's the best between the moves. Maybe I've said that before. Between the moves, he's always filling up. He's always working.
Yeah.
He's never lazy. He's not like, I'm going to shout to the crowd now. No, he puts you in a hole, and then he starts talking to the crowd. He's always working the fingers, your nose. He's doing everything. So I'm waiting for a one-on-one with him and you. That would be great.
I would love to do it. I would love to redeem myself. So, Emil Sitoci, if you are watching, once this whole shit is done for, me and you, let's do it again, buddy.
I will buy a ticket to see that.
I would love to, especially now because I was still not Kris Jokic back then. I was wrestling as Chris Wilson and Andrea Jokic back then, and that's something HCW helped me about, was finding my groove and finding my gimmick, my identity in pro wrestling. Before I was just like, just a solid guy.
The Belgian guy said the same.
Yeah.
Why taking an English name when you're from
Of course.
beautiful Eastern Europe?
Beautiful.
That were his words.
Yeah, definitely. Big B, Bernard Van Dam helped me with that one. Yeah, of course. He was saying, imagine this. From Africa, come in, Jack Johnson. Jumping Jack Johnson. I was like, oh, it doesn't work. But yeah, exactly. That's how you are. Yeah, so.
Yeah, but sometimes it's good to listen to guys like that.
Of course.
For such a long time in the industry, and sometimes things are just so basic you forget that.
Yeah, definitely. So we said about Sitoci, he would be your top three favorite opponents. What about top three worst opponents for you?
Oh yeah, I love to say that. Of course. Well, I must say that I have the privilege. I never really worked the dorks. It's like if you know somebody is the yellow belt,
yeah,
you have to pace down.
Do
something else that makes a good story, right? So if you know somebody's not a good worker, make a better story. Right?
Yeah, definitely.
So if I want to do all my tricks because I want to show my tricks, and you can't do it, your timing is off, you're a fucker. No, when you're more experienced, you must have the experience to see that guy can't handle that speed or the timing or take the fall. So you have to go back, stay on his level, or put him a little bit up on his level, and give him the confidence. And that's the nice thing when you wrestle guys who are not that experienced, so you can then lift them up in their level, and that's cool. But the worst guys, well, oh yeah, of course, the worst fucking asshole I've ever worked was Bubba Ray. Motherfuckers, fat, sick
Bubba Ray Dudley.
Bitch. You can cut this out, right? No, Bubba Ray was very unprofessional acting.
Yeah.
Very unprofessional. I've told this story a couple of times in the podcast. I don't know how many time you have, but
no, we can go. Don't worry about time.
I'm happy to tell you the story if you want.
Sure. I would love to hear it.
Guys who already know the story, but this is the thing. I can tell this story with my eyes closed because I'm still so sad about this story. No, this guy's man. Let's start. We had a show with Tommy Dreamer, DPW, Tommy Dreamer, Tajiri, and Billy Ray. We had the shows before with RVD, Billy Gunn, Chavo Guerrero. Those guys were all cool. El Snow and other guys were very cool. Also gave seminars, very good information. So we booked Bully Ray. He was Bully Ray at the time for TNA, for Impact. He got his big push at that moment. And he gave us some promos in front of the screen of TNA. It was very professional. He was talking shit about me because I was his opponent. And, well, the day was there. We had to pick him up. And Tommy Dreamer was the first one who arrived. So Dreamer came, we drank a coffee with him. And he was talking a lot about personal stuff and very friendly, man. So 20 minutes later, Bully Ray came with his cap on. Like that. Hey, Dreamer. And from that moment, Dreamer was like not the friendly man anymore. He was just in silence. He said, I need a massage. My back hurts. Like, I can't do a lot of bumps this weekend because I'm injured. This man got paid the jackpot. The DPW paid a lot of money for this man. And he was like, are we going? And one of the guys said, no, we wait for Tajiri. Oh, the fucking jab. Okay. I was like, this guy is worse than me. So after 30 minutes, because it's very hard to find Tajiri from a flight from Japan because it's not that big or something. So the announcer was looking, where's Tajiri? And normally he has the beard, and now he wasn't. He had shaved his beard. So you're like, where is he? So we found Tajiri. Then he came back like, are we going? yeah, we're going now. So we went to the from Schiphol Airport to the hotel, but a couple of minutes from Schiphol Airport, you have the bridge with the restaurant in it. You know, I think we.
Oh yeah, we went there. Yeah.
Yeah, with the pancakes.
Yeah, I love that place.
So we are sitting there, the promoter, the announcer, and me, Tajiri, Dreamer, and Bully Ray. So it was funny. We were sitting on the table, and Tajiri sees my tattoo, and he says, that's Kenzo. I'm like, really? He said, yeah, Kenzo. I was like, oh, I thought that it was saying farmer's dick. So he was, from that moment, he was okay with me.
So translation is good.
Dreamer and Bully Ray were sitting at the end of the table, making conversation with each other, and we were locked out. Okay. So we had a big sheet with this time we go to dinner, this time is the seminar, this time we pick you up for the show. Totally good arranged. So after the lunch, we drove to the hotel, we gave him the sheet. We said, if you want, we can take you out for dinner before the seminar starts. Let's see. Freeman was like, I don't know. Tajiri was, I don't know, because they wanted to stay at the hotel and not go to the seminar. So I picked him up to drive him to the diner. And he was only with his telephone. The seat next to me with that fucking cap on it. So when I was trying to make a conversation, he was like, oh, good. Yeah. He was a fucking jerk. Why are you saying that? Stuff like that. I was like, what the fuck? What kind of gimmick are you playing, man? You fucking trying to kayfabe me, you motherfucker. Then he started talking that he was a fucking badass, that he was a bouncer in New York before he started wrestling, and I was like, before you started wrestling, you were fucking fat, right? You were the fat guy of the Dudleys. That's well, because I don't watch a lot of wrestling, because I didn't know he had lost a lot of weight and that he went Bully Ray. I was like, I have to face the fat guy of the Dudley Boys. Get the glasses. No one will lie with me. So when I saw his promo, I thought, oh, he lost some weight, right? But then he was trying to convince me that he was fucking badass, and I was like, you know how I think, right?
Yeah. Okay, just keep talking.
I will present you the bill at the end, right? And then that he was provider of adult movies and that he was a millionaire and stuff like that. And I was like,
the
what
fuck?
are you trying to convince me that you are very fucking successful or something? I was like, you're still the fat guy from the Dudley Boys. So we go to the restaurant. He's sitting at the end of the table with Cannonball Grizzly, with Paul Noy, great guy. And he's ordering a meal for 2 persons, most expensive, because it was on our treat. And at the end, we were done. No thank you, nothing. I think you're a fucking asshole. That was what I was thinking. I was like, I asked, like, is it me or is this strange, right?
Yeah.
You get some dinner, you don't say thank you or something. Then we stepped in the car to the seminar. Telephone, cab. He said, tonight you will see what teaching is. I'm like, what do you mean? I will show you what teaching is, because he heard I was teacher. I will show you what teaching is. I was like, I start to fucking hate you. Please don't talk to me again. We go to the seminar, and we had some good seminars. Like I said, with El Snow, Chavo, Billy Gunn, great. Chavo, great guy, fucking friendly. He came in. They're guys from Portugal, England, France. They drove a fucking 1,000 of miles to come there, or went by airplane. He came in. So I said this. Shall I introduce you to the guys? He's like, I think they will know who I am. And I was like, okay. So I was sitting in the back watching the seminar, and everybody was afraid, because he started like, no cameras, no writing, no pictures. That's a friendly seminar to start with. Right?
Yeah.
Then A-Buck from France was also at the seminar. And we're talking about 2012. He didn't speak English very well, very much. He didn't understand everything, so they were trying to translate it. And then at some point he was like, are you fucking kidding me? You black guy, you don't understand English? And I was like, I was shocked. Are you saying that for real? I was like, really?
What the fuck? Yeah.
And he said a lot of good stuff in the seminar, because he's so experienced, so he knows a lot of shit. Yeah. But he talked a lot of shit also. He said, there was a guy from England, and he said something funny. He said, yeah, well, I'm always booked as a heel, and now there's a promoter, he wants to book me as a face, and I don't want to do that. Bully Ray steps to him, nose to nose, getting angry at the participant of the seminar who paid a lot of money to see him. Listen, son, you do whatever the fuck the promoter says, because he's the boss, he pays the money, so you have to shut up and do whatever the fuck he says. Everybody started laughing. I was like, okay, yeah, maybe you're right? The guy was totally like, what the fuck? And another time he blew him off again. Then he had a part of in ECW, TNA, or WWE. Everybody watch your match at the monitor screen. You know where I'm going, right? Everybody's watching the match. And when you come back to the curtain, everybody gives you feedback. Especially not to me. Nobody ever gave me feedback like this. Nobody ever gave me feedback. And I was sitting on the chair and I was like, let's guess who gets some feedback tomorrow. I will fuck you up, motherfucker. I will make you mentally sick. So, at the end of the seminar, nobody was asking an autograph or a picture because everybody was like, okay, this is the end. Are we going to the hotel? He said, okay. Everybody was standing there like, what happened here? So we left, and I felt ashamed for the guys who want to make a picture. I drove to the hotel. The jury is sitting there outside with a beer and a smoke, with a cigarette. So he opens my window, Bully Ray. Hey, the jury, where's Dreamer?
I don't know. I Kenzo, my name's Kenzo.
Hi, I asked you, where the fuck is Dreamer? The jury.
I don't know.
The jury was drinking beer, having a good time. So he steps out of the car. He closes the door. I pick up my telephone. I said, tomorrow, somebody else has to pick up this fucking jackass because I fucking hate this guy. I hate him. And I even don't want to wrestle this guy. He's the biggest piece of shit I've ever seen. Gimmick or not, you don't behave yourself like this as a guest. They pay him a lot of money. No thank you. How he behaved against in the seminar against the guys. I was like, this is fucking wrong. I don't want to do it. I will do the match, but I'm totally not motivated. So I'm at home talking like, this is a fucking piece of shit. She says, I don't think he likes you. I said, yo, I think you're right. But the thing is, I don't like him either. So the next day I woke up and I said to myself in the mirror there, I said, don't let him fuck you up because he will do everything to disappoint you or make you feel awkward. This is what he's gonna do. He doesn't want to lose the match. That's one, because it was scheduled he would lose the match. Two, he won't do any trademark move. So he's going to hide like, no, I don't do that or stuff like that. Some of the guys do that tricks. Easy money, right? Don't do a big bump. Three, he will sit in a different locker room playing hide and seek. He will do that. And four, he will wait as long as possible to make the match. He will wait as long as possible. He hopes I will beg for him, please can we make the match?
Yeah.
So for me it was like, you come to me, right? That was my game. So I came to the venue. Somebody else picked him up. That was me, sorry. Somebody else picked him up. He was in the venue. I came in. And when I came in, it was in Poelwijk in the Leunetjes, where you were the first time.
Yeah. Theater, like.
Big podium.
Yeah.
I see Rick Peters, the announcer, one of the guys who created the event also, walking through the curtains. I'm not lying. Totally pale. Like he was dead. Guys. I remember saying, it's 8 years ago, I still see the movie in my head. Guys, we have a huge problem. And I was like, okay, let me guess. What's the problem? Is the problem with Bully Ray? Yeah, there's a big problem with Bully Ray. I said, stop. Let me guess. Bully Ray doesn't want to lose the match. And you're like, how do you know that? He said he was walking in the hallway where the sheets were hanging with the time limits and stuff like that. And he was like, what's this? What's this? It says Kenzo Richards wins after the Kenzo Crusher. And he was like, you can see it, right? With the glasses on, the fat guy with the camo suit. He said,
with the glasses.
ain't gonna happen. If I knew this, I wouldn't even come to this fucking shithole.
Yeah. Fucker.
I said, well, Rick, so what's the huge, big problem now? Yeah, he doesn't want to lose the match. I said, so then he wins the match? Is that not a problem for you? And I was like this, like, I said, Rick, I'm so disappointed that you think I want to win matches or something. I don't know, but you know this is not real, right? And he was like, oh, no, okay. And Kodiak was standing there in this conversation. He was just saying nothing because I already gave him the solution. So walk back and say to him, it's okay for him to win the match. So Rick goes back. So I wait for maybe 8 minutes. I went in the locker room. There they're sitting, the guys. The Jerry, Dreamer, Bully Ray. And in the locker room, you always have your own spot.
Mm-hmm.
And my chair was just in front of the Bully Rays. So I came in and said, hello, Mr. Tajiri. And he's sitting there with the cap on again, with his telephone. So he was like, oh, I have to get off my phone and give this motherfucker a hand. He was totally not amused. So I gave him, shook his hand. And I was like, good morning. And he was like, good morning. And he wanted to pull his hand back, but I just hold his hand like, and made eye contact. I said, I heard there's a problem for you with the outcome of the match. And he was like, and I see Tajiri reading a book like, uh-oh. I said, it's not a problem for me. So I sit on the chair and I tapped him on the leg like, if you want to win the match, you can win the match. You know why? Because it's not real. Pro wrestling is not real. So I was teaching him what pro wrestling was. Then he's...
No one gives me feedback.
You want to make a confrontation. So I stood up like, I'm not going to back down for you, motherfucker. So I was, because it's a big dude, I was not impressed. The worst thing happening, grabbing his back, walk out of the venue, right? Mm-hmm. That's the worst thing that can happen. If you want to have a fight, I love that. Let's have a fight, right? So he grabbed his back and he walked away. He took a different locker room. Hey, that's the second thing I said. Mm-hmm. You won't sit in the same locker room. So I was having a little fun game, like let's see if he does do the 4 things, right? So he doesn't want to lose the match, and he doesn't want to sit in the same locker room. So there, this is so funny. If you're watching this, you won't believe it. You think I'm exaggerating, that it's not real, right? Like he's telling it more romantic. This really happened. Exaggerating, that was the word. We have a meet and greet. You can buy a photo ticket or an autograph ticket. So if you have an item, the superstar Bully Ray can sign it, and you have a photo ticket, you can take a picture with him. And there's a Q&A, so you could buy an extra ticket. So I'm sitting backstage doing nothing because I'm not a real big superstar, so I was not in the Q&A, but Tajiri was, and Dreamer was, and Bully Ray was. And Bully Ray was hanging on the ropes in his Q&A, not sitting on a chair. He was like, boring. questions asked. He was playing the Stone Cold gimmick. Every time somebody asked something, what? So it was a guy around 14 or 15 years old. He was asking me a question. He was doing the what gimmick, 3 times.
Jesus.
And the guy was asking him the same question every time. And after the 3rd time, he said, "Are you deaf?" Then he got fucking pissed. He stepped out of the ring, swearing, "You're a disgrace and you are guilty. You raised this sick kid and he has no respect." He got totally off. So I heard that backstage. Somebody walked to me and that guy's fucking, that's a weirdo. I was like, maybe it's gimmick, right? Maybe it's gimmick. So half hour later, they have that photo moment with the photo tickets. So the boy walked to him with his receipt. And he's like, "No, I don't take a picture with you." "No, I don't do it." So they paid a ticket, but they didn't take the picture because he said no. I was like,
This guy.
fucking asshole. Then I got pissed because I heard that backstage. I was like, no. So I was like, this is a real fucking jackass. So show starts, everybody's like, you know how it works backstage, everybody's doing stuff. And I'm sitting on the chair waiting. I'm like, "You come to me," right? "I'm not coming to you." So the guys are like, there's a break and the guys are asking, "Do you have your match?" I said, "No. Match 3 is going on, right? Just for intermission." "No, I still have nothing." Dreamer comes to me. "Bully Ray is searching for you." I said, "No, he's not searching. He sent you to find me."
Yeah.
It's like, so I said, "Where is he?" "Yes, he's in the locker room there." So I walked to the locker room and knocked on the door. I walked in. He was like, I opened the door. He was like, "So you have the chops, right?" Like I'm his best friend. Like nothing happened. Talking about my moveset. I was like, "Yes." "Okay. What are your moves? What is your what's your finish?" I said, "Power drive, but you're too heavy for that." I said, like this, "Power drive, but you're too heavy for that. But I also have the Kenzo crusher." "What's a Kenzo crusher?" I said, "Well, maybe also too heavy for you to take." Then he starts about, "Do you have a good clothesline?" I said, "What?" "Line, you have a good line." "Yes, I think so, yes." "Give me one." I'm like, "Here in the locker room?" Because we were the only 2 in the locker room. "Yeah, give me a line." I'm like, "Okay." I gave him a line. "Won't take a bump for that one." I said, "But are you serious? Do you want me to give you a stiff clothesline here in the locker room?" "Yeah, give me one." I don't bump easy. It must make impact." I said, "Okay." So I gave him as hard as I could, and he was like, "Yeah, that's a little bit better."
What the fuck?
I'm like, oh my god. So I wanted to put my side slam in it, you know, the thing with the turnaround.
Nice, yeah.
He said, "Well," I said, "normally if somebody gives me a clothesline, I'll hook the arm." I said, "Maybe you can do it when you give me a chop for the story, then I hook the arm." "No, that doesn't work." I'm like, "Oh, of course, stupid Kenzo, because he won't take my trademark moves." I told myself early in the morning, and I was like, "You won't, that's the number 3 and the number 4 because he doesn't want to make the match."
Oh yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, so the circle's round.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
Wait, sorry, stop. So, you guys were main event, right?
yeah.
And the planning happened how much time before the main event? How much?
2 matches before.
So you had like 20 minutes, 30. Okay.
Yeah, for a main event.
Yeah,
And I
that's-
was like, if this match is fucked up, it's him to blame because he's
Yeah.
a professional.
Okay.
Fuck it.
Yeah.
So he said, "What do you have more?" I said, "Well, I have a submission. That's finished." I said, "The Kenzo lock, the half Boston crab." And you know what happens before that? You give me a kick, I scoop and I give you the legit judo throw.
Yep.
When you fall on your neck, that's heavy shit because I have to protect you.
Mm-hmm.
I said, how do you go to in the half Boston crab? I said, well, will you give me the? I said, no, never mind. That's no. And I was like, tell me. I said, no, that's too difficult for you. Maybe we can show me the move. I said, no. I said, I think you can't make that bump. That's too difficult for you. It's different because it's a judo throw. Show me the fucking move. I said, okay, you give me the kick. I grab your leg, and then I give you the sweep. We'll do that one.
Okay.
So he stink himself into the most fucked up move to get, because that's the most dangerous move in my arsenal. If I would say to him, let's do the sweep, he would say. So now he was like, you say I can take the bump, we'll take that bump. So he stink his own face. So he said, so I'll give you the kick, right? I said, yeah, high kick in the ribs. So when somebody gives me the kick, I grab your leg, I grab your neck and give you the sweep. He said, let's practice. I practice. Yeah, the kick. I said, okay. So he gives me a kick, full force in the ribs.
Mm-hmm. Jesus.
Just to give me a fucking potato in the ribs. But I was quick. So when he gave me the kick, I just locked his leg. And he's big. So I locked his leg and just making eye contact with him. And he's standing there on one leg. And I'm holding him for maybe 12 seconds. Holding his leg, and he's standing there like a flamingo in one leg. Flamingo duckby. And while he's standing there on one leg holding his balance, I'm saying, but this kick, I won't take a bump for that one. Like he said to me with the clothesline, that I hope you kick harder in the match because this doesn't look good. He went nuts. So when we have to make our entrance, he's standing there with this chain around his neck. And I'm walking to him and I said, are you keeping that chain on in the match? He said, yes, why? Nothing. Good luck with the sweep.
Right on the neck, bro.
Mentally. And in the match, he was chopping the shit out. He tried to chop the shit out of me because he had this vest on to protect himself.
Oh, yeah.
So I hit him a couple of times good. But in the ring, his work is good timing. He's a good wrestler. But his attitude was so bad at that moment. And later we heard from other guys, you know, when we were in Portugal, the other guy told the same, that he was jealous and on the other tag teams, acting like a prick. So the worst thing in my career was this after the match, because I was in a storyline with another guy, and at the end of the match, he wanted to throw me through the table with Bolly Ray, or he attacked Bolly Ray, set up the table and wanted to throw me through it. And then it was Bolly Ray and me against the guy and threw him through the table. And then we were standing there, hands together, and you can see the picture of me again next to Bolly Ray. It was an embarrassing moment. So after the match, he's in the locker room, and I'm like, I knock on his door, and he's standing there, and he tried to put out his shirt, and he just put it back, and I said, okay, thank you for the match. I said, do you have some pointers for me to make it better? No, it was good, he said. And I do this. Like, okay. He threw my shoulder. He's like, listen, son, if it was fucked up, I would fucking tell you. This was good. I'm like, okay, thank you very much, sir. I walked away. I see him in the mirror trying to pull his shirt up because I was leaving the locker room. And I was standing outside. I was like, 1, 2, 3. I pulled the door back open. He was standing there in the belly. And I was like, oh yeah, before I forget, I want to give you some feedback. I said, you took a very good bump with the sweep. Thank you very much. And then I closed the door and his face was like, he was. Yeah.
Fucking bully, right?
That was the worst guy to work with. And in the ring it was good, but the whole thing, I was so not motivated.
Yeah.
I only had that one time, and that was with him. That was the funny thing with RVD. I had a match with RVD. I think I was the first guy in the indie scene who had a match with RVD.
Oh, wow.
And I met him before in Portugal. I had a long weekend, a funny guy. And the promoter said, well, RVD had some things to say for the opponent. If you work RVD, there must be contact. Don't hit air. RVD wants to have some contact.
Mm-hmm.
And RVD doesn't want to make the match 3 or 4 hours before the match starts. He doesn't like it. So the promoter said, oh, don't worry, Kenzo will make some contact. And when he came in, that was funny because the night before we took him and his wife to Amsterdam, and he could give us a tour to the coffee shop because he knew where every coffee shop was for real.
Oh shit!
And his photo was hanging there and stuff like that. And we were eating in a Mexican restaurant, and he was ordering a Corona. Oh, that's by accident now. He ordered a Corona beer.
Yeah, shit.
And he's so clumsy. His wife was putting his food and drinks every time away from him because he's talking like this, and he shoves everything over the table. But in the beginning, he was trying to grab something, and his Corona beer was like fell in my crotch.
Oh shit!
It was a full bottle. And I was standing. I said, "You motherfucker!" And he was standing. He said, "What's your problem, man?" So we were having a face-off.
Oh shit!
And the promoter was sitting next to us, like, and we were fucking gimmicking, kayfabing everything. And we were like, we were fucked up. The promoter was like, oh my god, there's going to be a fight in a Mexican restaurant, and those guys have to fight each other tomorrow. So, in that match also, I gave him the special pin. You know, in the beginning when I was a heel, I always lay my crotch in your face. I did it to you.
Yes, you did it.
I said to you, yeah, man, that's Corona crotch. And then I worked with him. But I rejected RVD 3 times to make the match. He came to me, he said, Kenzo, shall we make the match? I said, no, we have time enough. So I sent him away. And the second time, no. And the third time, he was bribing me with a protein bar. Hey, Kenzo, this is for you. Come, man. He was like, oh, this guy loves to eat, I think. Maybe I can. Like a sort of bait.
Baiting you with the protein.
You know, RVD is so much bigger than Bully Ray, but so much down to earth and respect for the business because he doesn't do shit what doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, that's cool.
I love that.
Yeah, but for that list, you're in the list also. Top 3.
Top 3.
Oh. Yeah, top 3 good workers.
Oh, thank you. I was thinking
I guys who are agile is easy to work with.
Yeah.
I'm always having the problem when I work guys, I'm like, oh, I hope he's on time. Oh, I hope he knows how to turn around. Because I don't have a lot of faith in people. that has a reason. So I love the guys who are agile and like you guys, you're in the air and you still know where you are.
Yeah.
Coordination is still on place. And some guys will make a roll.
Dizzy as fuck, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Those
definitely.
not the fucking wrestlers can roll. But that's it. I don't trust a lot of guys. In the ring is the same. So I choose then, shall I do it for my own ego, but it will be a fuck up?
Yeah.
So if I want to try something new, it's always with Emil. Let's try this. And then it's always okay.
Yeah, that's smart.
I with you the same. It's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So before everything went to shit with this COVID-19 and everything, you were in Japan, right? Like last year, or when was it? Last year.
2018.
18, yeah, late. Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how was that? How did that even happen? Like, how did that happen?
Because I'm that bad, that worst kind of wrestler ending in Japan.
No.
How's that possible, you mean?
No, I'm actually like wondering, like,
I'm not offended.
as a no, come on, man. As a worker, I was like always like, how do guys go to Japan? Like,
I'm playing. I want to go by train, but it's, I think 4 or 5 weeks.
Oh shit.
Spirit Express.
But yeah, like, did you? How did? What was your connection there? Was Tajiri or?
Well, yeah. With Tajiri, it's going a long time now. 2012, 2000. Let's see. I think it was 12. Yeah, and then we had the Dubai thing where I was scheduled against him, but they didn't give him the right ticket, so we stayed in touch.
Oh
And
shit.
then we brought him back, and then I advised the Italians to book Tajiri and the Portuguese guys. So I had a link with him, and then he asked me, "Do you want to wrestle in Japan?" I said, "Nah." Now I said, "Yes, of course." He said, I will ask some companies," and then he asked Michinoku
Mm.
and the other guy from his former promotion, from Tajiri's promotion, who took it over. The level is good, man. Like I said, if you're standing in that ring, you can fucking wrestle. But those guys are all legit. They
Yeah.
have like some fucking pancakes and spandex.
Yeah.
Those guys are legit good fighters. Just check the ears. The ears are
Cauliflower. So.
ears are
Like,
broken.
yeah. Shit.
Then you're a fucking legit fighter, and all those guys are or wrestlers or judokas or. It's fun to see, man. It's really good.
Yeah, it was a good
And
fit for you, right?
It's a good place to be humble again,
Of course.
because you have to put everything out of yourself to not be the worst fighter on the card, because there are a lot of good guys there.
Yeah. So how did the chops go over in Japan?
Oh, they loved it.
I bet, man.
Yeah. They loved the chops. They
Yeah.
loved it. But even then, I was so focused, like, oh, that chop has to be good here. There has to be,
Yeah.
the sound has to be there. Otherwise, if it's like, oh my god, then you're over, right? It's done. It's game over.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the chops were fucking exciting.
I love it. Yeah.
I was like, wow, was there a fucking guns or something? And Japan, I love the mentality there. The people are so humble, and everybody's standing in queue, and it's so different. People are not smoking on the street. There's no garbage on the street. And there are no garbage cans on the street. Everybody takes it in his bag and
Wow.
takes it to go home. Yeah,
Jeez.
it's very clean. You have to go there one day, man.
I would. It's on my bucket list for sure. I want to go
Let's
Japan
go
and
next
Mexico.
year.
Let's go next year, yeah.
Yeah, I don't have that long anymore.
Okay. How long do you plan on wrestling?
Look at this face, man. Hey, I'm still in shape for my
Yeah.
ring.
Yeah. You look good. You look good.
Yeah, it's okay. You know, my body doesn't hurt. I'm still okay. I don't know how it can, or maybe because I don't do a lot of crazy shit. I don't dive outside the ring. I don't have nasty injuries. Maybe that's good for me. but I'm still. Yeah, I don't have to do this 5 days a week, so I'm still okay. When I see I'm really slowing down and it looks fucked up, I have to quit. I hope you guys will tell me that also.
Nah, when the time comes, but I don't think you are like on a track to retirement yet. You still
Not
have,
yet.
yeah, not yet. I mean, because I was like always, I'm thinking about this sport way too much to change it, and I keep forgetting about good times I had wrestling with guys like you, with Icarus. That's what Icarus always tells me. Like, you always try to change this shit, but we are here, and we always like think the same. And I agree. I fucking love you guys that are part of my like pro wrestling family. But I always, for some reason, keep concentrated on the fucking flapjacks in wrestling business and the fucking promoters that are ridiculously like. You have like a Austrian promoter that is like Stone Cold gimmick or whatever. All
Yeah,
this,
yeah.
all this.
Every promotion has one.
Yeah, it was so.
And every show
yeah.
is WrestleMania.
Yeah.
That's what the honky tonk always said. Every show in the Indies is a WrestleMania.
But that's true actually. Like everyone wants to go. Like it's so hard to finish the
Most
match
important
these
show
days.
of the year.
Yeah.
But you have to live in the moment, man.
Yeah.
You don't know where you are next year or in 5
Exactly.
years. Maybe you break your fucking leg and you can't walk anymore, and then it's over. And then you're like, yeah, I want to go to Japan. Fuck it, we have to just do it.
Mm.
Just do it.
Yeah. It's on my bucket list definitely. Mexico and Japan. I want to do it for myself just to get that education of wrestling there.
You know that Mexico is not on my list, and I can understand it's on your list. I would like. They're coming from everywhere.
Yeah. But for me, it was something that I fell in love with when I was a kid. Not so much anymore. I like all the psychology and lucha libre matches super
It
off.
doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter because I can watch it. It's like, wow, man, this is fun. It's like Mexican beans, like
Yeah.
And you don't watch that because of the storyline of psychology. Those guys are Cirque du Soleil. And
Yeah. It's just
I'm
fun.
just-
Yeah.
and I'm not good enough to do that with those guys because I will pace it down for them, and it's it's not good. I wrestled one time the guy from what's the CLM?
Yeah.
Is that the name?
Yeah. CML.
Yeah. The Nitro, the guy with the mask.
Oh.
He was in APC, and I was like,
Oh,
oh
wow.
shit, this is gonna hard fucking chops also.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, hard.
Mexican.
So
Yeah.
fast.
Yeah.
At that time he was 47, was fucking quick. And I was like, no, you're the weakest link in that match. Talking about myself, if I'm in that match, I'm the weakest link. I don't want that. You have to know your game, like know your role, and that's not my role.
Yeah.
I like that mustache, by the way. That's
Oh, thank you.
very,
This is my.
Serbian film.
This is my.
Oh, that's
quarantine.
wrong, right? But like I said, sorry.
Hey, it's all good. I mean, the reason why I'm talking about like retirement and shit like that, because for myself, honestly, I don't see myself wrestling past 40. Like, nah,
Oh, you will.
nah, I don't think so.
You can't stop.
I mean, I will always be part
if
of the
you're in
business.
If you're in love with this form of entertainment, you won't say after 40 I stop. I can make this challenge with you right now. You won't stop after 40.
Oh, we might just do a bet for that.
You know how old I am when you're 40? Oh my god. And I'm still standing there in tights. Oh my god. Oh,
How old are you, by the way?
fucking very fucking old.
Nah.
Not as old as Bernard Dam, but
Oh shit, but
44, my friend.
yeah. You look.
Yeah. So now you're like, oh shit, what did I say? And that old guy is still doing his fucking tricks.
Nah, I still
He's
think like I'm.
He's too fucking old.
Nah, it's not that. It's just like I mean, I want to do for myself, like, get educated about the business as much as I can. Do wrestling in US, in Mexico, in Japan, just to learn about the business. Because I feel like all these guys that are wrestling today, they're rushing and skipping the parts of learning of the business, of the art of pro wrestling. They just want to be on the fucking spotlight. But what the fuck do you do on that spotlight? That's the, like,
Yeah.
you're not ready for that shit.
That's because you have brains, and a lot of guys don't have brains. Yeah, but be honest. Now I'm saying the wrong stuff again, but fuck it.
Yeah.
A lot of guys in the ring are just fans.
Oh, I agree 100%. They're like,
Because it's like cross, triangle, circle, square.
so much
I can
fanboys.
be a wrestler
Yeah.
because on PlayStation I can beat everybody.
Yeah.
You're laughing about it, but sometimes when you see the tryouts, and I'm like, I want to kick you in the face because you think you can do what I do, and you're fucking 40 kilos. You can't even lift a woman. So
Yeah.
I've seen guys who couldn't make one push-up,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Or giving up after 3 minutes with the warmer Browns. What the hell were you thinking? What this is it like, oh yeah, that guy will jump for me? It's like they come in with a fucking stage name. Yeah, my name is John and my stage name will be this or that. What? And that's the mentality. If you do this shit in, for example, in Japan or in Mexico, they're like, I think in Mexico they will shut you through the head. And I think in Japan they will fucking kick the shit out of you with a stick.
Yeah. I mean, this is so, it makes me sick about this whole, like, everyone can be anything today. Like, no, you can't.
No.
I mean, in every other sport, I will never be a basketball player because I'm too short. End of story. You can be. That's it.
That's it. I had a conversation this an hour before we went online with a photographer, not one of the guys from DPW, the other guy from Facebook. And he posted something about a fat woman, like on a Calvin Klein commercial, and it said, "This is how you see yourself," and under it, Calvin Klein with a big black pig, and this is how we see you. Well, he got a lot of shit over him, and I was sending him a DM like, yeah, you're my hero, you made my day. Like, everybody thinks they can be whoever they want to be.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to see a commercial with a 200 kilo woman in sexy lingerie.
Exactly.
Fuck it. I don't want to see that. So I want to be a lawyer. Yeah, you can do it. So go to court one day and do some trials. No, because I am not allowed to do that shit because I don't know shit about it. So don't do it. Yeah, but my mother says you can do everything you want. That's the world we live in. And in the West, it's even worse. They have a lot of shit going on. And I try to not respond on stuff like the political stuff on my accounts. I don't want to give my opinion about it because I only have the Kenzo Richards Facebook or Instagram and not my personal stuff. Why should I post everything of my private life to show everybody else? I have a Kenzo Richards account and I show you my life and wrestling. And I think it's fun to show. But Kenzo Richards is the wrestler. It's not a political opinion.
Yeah.
I don't want to share stuff like that, or that boy is sick, give it a share. And no, I don't do that. As good as the cause is, I don't do that. No political statements, nothing.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of things to say your stuff about because the world is on fire at the moment.
Yeah, literally, yeah.
But I'm complaining here in my house, so that's good also.
Well, yeah, that's the world we live in. You said it best, so yeah. It's crazy. So, with all this thing about COVID and end of the world, without getting too deep into it, let's just see what side of the coin are you on. Is COVID-19 real or not? Just a short answer. let's not get into it.
I'm the biggest sheep there is. If the government says go left, I will go left. Just do the fuck what they say. Just do the fuck they tell you. And I'm like, oh no, because everybody thinks he's a professor because they can make their own wisdom on the internet. And I'm always like, the people are so stupid nowadays. I think I'm so pro for an internet license. Like,
yeah, I love this idea. I already love it.
Yeah, because when you want to drive a car, you need a license. If you're a fucking dumbhead, don't go on the internet. So if your IQ is too low, or your history of bashing people on the internet, or you're creating problems every time, you don't have access on the internet. Yeah, that's impossible. No, that's possible because most of the people, except that DPW fan, has 10 fingers. Yes, that DPW fan with one arm.
Yeah, oh my god, yeah.
You're laughing. You're a bad guy.
No.
I am just saying the facts. Okay. But a lot of people have 10 fingers. So you put your finger on the laptop, access denied. Your fingerprint says you're too stupid to behave yourself. No. If you're fucking normal, you can do podcasts like we do. Two normal people.
Yeah. I fucking love this idea. I support it.
I see a lot of kids, 7, 8 years old, with smartphones. What the fuck are we doing, guys? The internet, they can search everything.
Yep.
If they know the word Google, they can see every shit of the adult shit. They can search everything. I say internet license.
Nice. I fucking love this idea.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, so if we had like two smart things from this podcast, it would be like pro wrestling belt system and internet license. Yeah. We got it. We fucking got it, man.
I'm not that stupid. I was like, maybe I had to tell all kind of crazy stories. So till now it's okay. So if I'm coming back one day, I will tell you the crazy stories.
Oh, definitely, man. I would love to hear them. Your stories are fucking legendary. What is the podcast you? Yeah, I know most of them. I mean,
with the hamster.
With what?
With the hamster.
Hamster. What hamster?
You filmed it, man. With the hamster in Italy, like I said, with the porn hamster.
What the fuck? What the fuck? Try to refresh my memory, please.
Yeah, there was a guy from, what's that site, that porn site? Was it X Hamster or so? X Hamster.
What the fuck?
And that guy won a prize, an Italian guy, and he was wrestling in a hamster suit.
Holy shit, I forgot about that shit.
And then that guy wanted to shake my head, and I was like,
no, but because I was not there.
He was his balls all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the scratcher. But I was never, I didn't wrestle there.
No, I was there with Bernard.
Yeah. Oh, man.
I will tell that one next time.
Oh, we're gonna keep that for the next one. We are going for like almost 2 hours now. I can't even believe it. Yeah. It's crazy. I'm gonna let you go soon. Few more questions and we're gonna be out, and we're gonna keep everything else for episode number 2 with Kenzo Richards. I just want to ask you about your bike that I saw on the picture the other day. What kind on a about your bike. I saw the picture on Instagram on your bike.
That bike is awesome, man. You mean the new one, the chopper, right?
Yeah, the chopper, the green one. Was it green? It's Indian or what is it?
Yeah. It's called a mangosteen.
Holy shit! I'm trying to get the license for chopper myself. It's always been
I want to have the night rod special for years, the Harley,
yeah.
but it costs a lot of money. And then it's like, how many times will I ride it? And where do I install it?
Of course.
And I'm like, this thing is electric. You don't need a helmet.
Oh shit!
Thing goes fast. There's some trick in the computer system, so you can drive very fast.
Wow.
But that thing is amazing. The other thing I have the with the big wheels. That thing is funny also, but it's a little bit tricky now. I changed the colors because I had one in the General Lee from Dukes of Hazzard, but it has the Confederation flag on it. But now everybody is angry about the Confederation flag because of the slavery. So I changed the thing because I'm such a nice guy, right? So I just changed it.
Anyway.
I have a big heart, man.
Oh, one of the biggest. Probably biggest in pro wrestling business. I mean, any guy that gives feedback to Bully Ray has a big heart.
Yeah, I'm just a nice guy, man. I just wanted to have him one time that he got feedback and then from me. That was. So years later, I can still say I was the first one who gave him feedback.
Okay, man. We're gonna end it with this one, and you're just gonna stick on my line so we can chat off air, just to see what's up with you. And the record is gonna stop. And anything else you wanna say for the fans, for anything, just be my guest. This is your platform now.
Yeah, guys, go fuck yourselves. See you next time. Thank you for watching, and I promise you next time I will have some better stories, because in this tank there's a lot of funny shit, and I will give you a big treat next time.
There you have it, guys. Kenzo Richards.
Thank you very much, and I'm honored I was the first, so it can only get better after this one.
Awesome. Thank you guys for listening, and see you next time.